thing, there is no question in the chat box. Now I welcome Dr. Anju Beniwal to introduce the next speaker. Madam.
Thank you, Ashok sir, for giving me this opportunity. Our next speaker is Dr. Prabhat Pankaj, and here I am giving his brief introduction. Dr. Prabhat is a postgraduate in economics and a PhD in applied economics. He obtained first position in the university in graduation and a university gold medal in post-graduation. He has been teaching economics at postgraduate and undergraduate level for about 30 years in the universities and B schools in India and abroad, including 7 years in Bhutan. Dr. Prabhat obtained executive education in management and leadership in higher education at Harvard University, Boston, USA. Dr. Prabhat is an Hawaii trainer and a resource person on effective teaching, teaching leadership, student-centric teaching, learning effective student engagement, and outcome-based education. He is an international researcher and a resource person on the subject of economics of happiness. He was an invitee in the World Government Summit 2019 Dubai by the Ministry of Happiness HAE. He writes in Times of India and Economic Times, and I have read his article several times. Dr. Prabhat is presently serving as the director of Jaipuria Institute of Management, Jaipur. He delivers workshops and sessions on higher education, student learning, and happiness management. Today, he is going to share his valuable views on 4 pillars of building passionate, purposeful, and participative campus. Over to Prabhat, sir. Welcome, Prabhat, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Anju, and so nice of you for your gracious introduction. Very good afternoon, all of you. And after listening to Professor Damodar ji and Dr. Ismail, so wonderful, presentations, and I think they have covered almost everything that we would like to talk about. They talked about ethics, they talked about responsibility of a teacher, they talked about pedagogy, they talked about collaboration, they talked about integrating the knowledge, they talked about building character, developing skills, metacognitive learning. So I'm wondering what should I contribute in my presentation, and so systematically they have covered everything. So I would also like to get back to Dr. Ismail for that matter, and learn a few more things from him. What I'll be speaking is right from what I have been doing in my institute. So it's more of a practical way of presenting the things rather than more theoretical. Of course, there is a lot of theory and the research that has gone into it, and I'll also reflect on those at a couple of points, but I'll be focusing more on practical aspect of how, and the context is college. The institution of higher learning, because I have been associated with the institution of higher learning. So whatever experimentations I have done is in the institution of higher learning. So my context will be more institution of higher learning. Let me just share my PPT and then start my presentation. Is my PPT
visible? It's visible, sir.
Is visible. So let me start making the presentation. So I'm going to talk about 4 pillars of building a passionate, purposeful, and participating campus. Why I've chosen these 3 words: the passionate, purposeful, and participative. There is a purpose behind it, because these 3 P's actually stand to explain what an educational institution, for that matter, the higher education institution, should be about. So I'm putting context more into the higher education, that's why, but it is universally true. Without passion, you cannot drive the educational institution towards the goal, the larger goal, or the 21st century goal that we have been talking about. So passion has to be there. It's all about passion, actually. So if the faculty actually participate with passion, the students are passionate about their learning, things becomes very easier, and then you can organize your learning, and they can achieve a lot with the passion at the core of their heart. Purposeful is very important, because we have to be driven by a purpose. It has to be driven by a purpose. Where do we find our purpose? How do we actually outline those purposes? How do we articulate those purposes? How we implement those purposes? These are all at the core of how we do in the higher educational. And invariably, the educational institutions who are doing good and educational institutions which are not doing so good, the difference lies in the purpose and the passion by which you drive those purposes. Participative is very important because it's all about participation, because engagement is the key to learning. And I strongly believe, as per my experience of 30 years in teaching is concerned, that it's the engagement that defines the outcome. So more the faculty is engaged, they become better. More the students become engaged, they become better. But the question is that, how do we create that kind of, engaging environment? So I'm going to reflect on some of it. So this is how usually I start. I congratulate all the teachers and they are into a very important profession. It's a great privilege to be a teacher. But I always assign along with that, every teacher, I give a call to them that remember always that you are in a privileged profession, but all great privileges will carry great responsibility. So if you do not understand our responsibility, the privilege won't work for you. So it's only those who will actually hold on to the responsibilities and carry it forward properly are able to be privileged in the times to come, especially when we look at the disruption which is happening in the education sector. So from last 200 years, we see that the education sector hasn't been disrupted as much as the other sectors have been. But what is the disruption which is knocking at our door? So that's very important for us to understand. And I'm just bringing one single point which is going to disrupt all of us, and which is actually disrupting all of us in a very, very big way. And that is the role of a professor as a content provider, which is diminishing very fast, because we have been very good at providing content. We have been very good at lecturing in the classroom, and believing that we know the knowledge actually belongs to us, and our job is to transfer this knowledge to the students. That's the model we have been following from last 200 years, and we are actually very good at that, and we are wonderful professor. We know history, we know economics, we know management, and we are doing so good in the classroom as a content provider. But how long is that going to continue? Because the content is now migrating to online systems, and the kind of online privileges which is available free of cost for the students, they can access it from anywhere, anytime. And they have the opportunity to actually learn the same topic, the same content, the same subject from best of the professors in the world. So today I cannot just imagine that, if I teach economics, I'm learning from my professor in my institution, but the student sitting in my class also has the opportunity to learn the same economics from a Harvard professor or from Dr. Smile. I'm listening to Professor Smile. This would not have been possible if this would have been only the physical way the Professor Smile will come and talk to us. So the whole scenario is changing quite fast, and things are being available to the students in a big way. So very recently I was reading a book. The title of the book is Teaching Naked, wherein the author has actually explained how the moving technology is going to disrupt the entire education system. So this is a big disruption, and this is going to come as a challenge to the professors. So this calls for the change in the role of a professor. So if professors are not out there to give big content, and that is the only job of a professor, to give content, and that is challenged, then what else are the job of the professor? And this change is going to happen. It's already happening, and we already seeing the burnt of it, like subjects like history, subjects like political science, sociology. There are very less students available in those classes, and the professors are so sad to see that the class is not full. The students are not interested in the lecture which is being conducted. So we are already feeling the burnt of it. So what next? If disruption is such kind of disruption is going to happen. So we started looking at the framework of the educational quality, and if you look at all the wonderful institutions all across the globe, this is based on that the expectations of the quality framework in an educational institution like higher educational institution, number one expectation is that it should have a stability. It should not be like overnight flight kind of an institution. It should be have fair amount of stability in terms of its staff, its faculty, and its policies. And it should also have a strategic mindset, which Professor Damodar has rightly pointed out, that you have to have a vision, and he talked about vision quite a lot. A vision is very important for the educational quality. That is called the strategic vision, the plan. That's what the quality framework is all about. It also has to be added by the collegial environment. So I have seen many institutions with a very good vision, but there the collegial environment is missing. Collegial environment means, do you have a happy learning environment in the college? Is there a saint of the place which is going to be there? Is it that when you enter the college as a professor on the day one or the morning time, you come to the college and you feel happy about it? Or are you just feeling that, this is somehow, it's a part of duty because I'm getting my salary from here, so I will come at 9, I have to come at 9, and I have to go at 5, so that kind of environment. So are you actually attached because you really have to attach yourself as a teacher, or you really attached yourself with the institution because you really love to attach with the institution? Right? So that's very important. And so goes with the students. Are the students in your class listening to you because they just have to listen to you, or are they listening to you in your class because they really want to, or they really love to listen to you? And there is a big difference in the way we are going to organize things. If we really feel that this is the institution which belongs to me, and this is a happy place where I feel like very, very happy to come over here. So that kind of collegial environment is going to create a quality education. And where from this it is derived? It's derived from the good processes and system. Do you have those good processes, or is going on the whims and fancies, or is it going by good processes and system? If there are good processes defined, very impartial, and very transparent, that's going to create a good quality education. What kind of leadership you have is also an indicator of a quality education, because the culture actually flows from top to bottom. It doesn't actually travel from bottom to up, and that's what the cultural studies suggest. Institutional support and the resources. Do you have those resources and support you get for your growth, for your innovations and things like that? So when you fail, you innovate, you fail, do you still get support from your institution is very important for a quality framework. What are the essential elements of this quality? We talk about good quality teaching. Teaching does not have to be just like we have been doing from last 100 years. It has to be changed. Socrates was of the opinion that a good professor is the one who actually burns his notes every year. So what he wanted to say is that you need to change your content. You need to change your pedagogy every now and then. And then you become a good professor. You have to keep on improving yourself, learning every year, and which Professor Smile has rightly pointed out, also pointed out in his speech. Evidence of learning. So, that is also now coming up very fast, because do your student really learn or not learn? Do you have those evidences? Do you know really that they're learning or not learning? Relevant curriculum is very important. One of the report that has come from World Economic Forum, the global skill report, or the global job reports, it suggests that the inability of the university system to change their curriculum according to the needs of the market and society have actually put a lot of cost on the students and their parents, because parents quite often they are paying for their students, their child's education. And if you add these costs that has been added on them in the last 20, 30 years down the line, the total cost that will incur on them will be almost equal to financial crisis, a kind of lost generation. So they talked about the lost generation. This is so painful. Who will take the responsibility of this lost generation, which has happened just because of our inability to change our curriculum and make it more relevant? Impactful research. So we're doing a lot of research, but where is the impact of the research on the society? Where is the impact of research in solving problems? So we have to talk about relevant research instead of just publishing a research. So we need to look at our policy afresh. Engagement with the business community and the society. Where is the engagement? A lot lot of colleges are doing good engagement with their community and the society. They're also harbinger of change in the community and society. I was in Harvard sometime, and one of the slogans that caught my attention over there is so profound. I would like to quote over here for all of you. The slogan says that learning to change the world. So the question is that, what is the purpose of learning? In fact, we have to start asking the question, what is the purpose of teaching? So if you look at what is the purpose of teaching, the purpose of teaching is basically to make our students learn. So that's one purpose of teaching. So what is the purpose of learning per se? Is it learning per se or more than that? The purpose of learning is that, you change your own life after you get adequate learning. So that changes your life. Second, you change the life of people around you, your family members, you lift them above poverty line. And, education has been a great leveler. It has been enabled the people to come out of poverty line. And millions of people have come out of poverty line. I'm a product of education, and I have been able to take my family above poverty line because of my education. So I cannot thank enough to the quality and the kind of impact the education had on my life. But the question is that are we really doing that, or are we just becoming a degree distributing agency? So, mission has to be your driver. So if you try to capture everything that I have spoken so far, mission will drive your people will drive your activities will give you outputs, and your outputs will give you outcome. So the 21st century learning, if you're talking about, it doesn't have to stop at output. It has to go to the outcomes. So in order to make the difference between input, output, and outcome, just for your understanding, I've just created some example. For example, you're instructing the class is called input. And students are actually getting a degree out of your teaching is an output. So if you stop over here, we are not doing enough. We have to go to the outcome. And the outcome is that out of that degree, the students are able to get a job. And if you enable your students to get a job, and your degree is competent enough to get a job for the students, of course, you have done a lot of outcome, and you have done a lot of impact in the society. Another example could be faculty research and teaching activities and input. You become an expert in your subject. That is the output. But you also are sought for different quotes in the newspaper. Your comments are appearing in EPW. Government is asking you to come and solve a problem. They recognize your expertise, like Professor Ismail. Now he is demanded in many countries of the world. They're asking Professor Ismail to come and do this CID's project with them. So that's the kind of impact you are going to make. So I hope I have made that. So now I'm coming to the 4 pillars, and I'll quickly finish in another 15 minutes. 4 pillars, which I call it. Number 1, I'm going to talk about learning and not just the teaching. That's one pillar. Second, outside classroom and not just inside classroom. So we need to actually blend that. Third is innovative pedagogy and not just lecturing. It's not going to help. Fourth is leading by example, which is very important, very close to my heart, and not just transactional. So you become a transactional professor. Your job is to just finish your task of the day and go back. But that's not going to work. You need to lead by example. So when we're talking about leading, learning and not just teaching, what are the goals? The goals are not just to deliver the lesson, but the goal is also to enable the students to learn the lesson. So you have to be student-centered rather than a teacher-centered institution. The words to remember is that you don't have to be the sage on the stage, that you come, deliver, and go. You come, deliver, and go. Not like that. Somebody said that a good professor is not the one who teaches the class. That is how our narrative goes. I have a class. I have to go for a class. Today is my class. I have finished my class. So this is the narrative generally we follow. But your narrative has to change. It says that a good professor is not the one who teaches the class, but a good professor is the one who teaches every student sitting in the class. When you start focusing on every student, whether they have really learned from your teaching or not, you become the guide on this. That is what I mean by focusing on learning rather than. So if there is question at the end, I'll answer that. But I'm quickly going on to the second one. Outside classroom, not just inside classroom. This is very important to create a learning culture. So learning culture is comprised of two segments. One is called the formal learning environment. Another is called the informal learning environment. The formal learning environment is structured, it's rigid, it promotes the directed learning. It also generally yields into a degree, diploma, and certificate. So that's what the formal learning environment is all about. But you need to have a reinforcement to the formal learning environment by creating an informal learning environment, which is rather unstructured, flexible, promotes self-learning, and there is no formal degree, diploma, certificate given. In my experience, informal learning environment is actually the culture building. It actually increases the outcome of the formal learning environment if you do. So today, if you complain that we are doing good job, we are teaching students, they are learning well, they are getting degree, but still we are not able to create the learning culture. It's because of the fact that we are not doing enough outside the classroom. Benjamin Bloom, the taxonomy talks about six levels of learning: cognitive learning, so remember, understand, analyze, evaluate, create. And Bloom says that anybody in the world can learn. So he says that what any person in the world can learn, almost all persons can learn, if provided the appropriate prior and the current conditions of learning are made. So he talks about the conditions of learning. He's not bothered about the learner per se, whether they are good or bad. There's nothing called bad learner. Everybody is a learner. The question is that what kind of conditions which will promote their learning is to be looked at. So teachers, and who controls the conditions of learning is the teachers who controls the conditions of learning. That's what Bloom says. And the successful learning will always promote even more successful learning. If there are more questions on Bloom's taxonomy, I'll talk about it in a while. There is another Fink. Why I have brought in Fink is that the Fink talks about the transformational learning. So he says that, Fink says that in order for the learning to occur, there has to be some kind of change in the student. It's not just a mugging process. So what kind of change are you bringing in your student? If there is no change, there is no learning. And he wants teachers to think about the impact they want to have on the students a year or more after they have finished the course. So he's calling the students, the faculty, to think beyond the degree that they are going to facilitate for their students. So he would like the student faculty to plan out and create a vision for their students, and focus on fundamental knowledge is very important. Also focus on application, that is skills, which is very important. The critical thinking is important. Integrating knowledge is very important. Human dimension is very unique to Fink's taxonomy, which talks about, if the students does not understand themselves properly, they won't be able to understand others. So, self-discovery or enabling the student to understand themselves, their own power, their own strengths is very important. It should be a part of the learning process. Caring is also a part of the learning process. If you would develop in the students the feelings, the interest, and the values, which are extremely important. And of course, the metacognitive learning, which Dr. Ismail has rightly pointed out, and is iterated over here, the learning how to learn and become a better student. So, I'm going to the third one. Due to the time limitation, I would have gone a little more on that, but I'll just restrict myself to talk about the third dimension. The third pillar is innovative pedagogy, because pedagogy is the defining line for the quality education. And 21st century, if you are not experimenting on pedagogy and just going for the lecturing, believe me, it's not going to work for times to come. You need to innovate. Pedagogy is the finishing line that we have to cross. Dale's cone of experience, if you look at, is very revealing. Right? It says that on the left hand side, if you look at, people generally remember 10% of what they read, 20% of what they hear, 30% of what they see, 50% of what they hear and see, and 70% of what they say and write, and 90% of what they do. So, there is another educationist, his name is Peterson and Kolb. The Kolb is saying that, how we how we learn is how we live. How we live is how we learn. So, we live by feeling, we live by thinking, we live by watching, we live by doing. And are we, if we are in our pedagogy, if we provide all these four opportunities to the students, combining, let's say, feeling with doing, thinking with doing, we'll be doing a great job and transformative learning can occur. But if you keep on lecturing, then the students won't actually learn more than 20%. If you're a wonderful professor, they'll learn maximum 20-30% from you, not more than that. Therefore, we have to, if you really want to, devise and want your student to develop competencies such as analyzing, designing, creating, evaluating, and this is all what we want our student to be. And then we keep on lecturing them, it's not going to work. But if you really want to make your student develop analytical capability, able to design something, able to create something, able to evaluate something, you need to combine in-class activity with the out-class activity. So you have to take them to some other places for the learning, and you have to devise different kind of methodology. So when this fundamental question of why education was answered, the classic answer came from Emily Durkheim, who talked about education will make us a better human being. We don't know whether education have really made us better human being or not. It's all your judgment. You can see around and find out whether it has really been able to make us a better human being. I have my doubts. Talcott Parsons said that education makes us at least productive. Too much of hyper productivity is also seen, which is destroying a lot of things in our society and our economy. So, that's also have failed in some way. Jagdish Bhagwati, our Indian economist, US based, he says that education helps us in getting a job access. And this is a paradigm which is actually been popularized through skill building and employability quotient for the education. If you combine all these three paradigms which are actually required for the education, there are two kind of values that we deliver. One is called the intrinsic value of education, which Emily Durkheim talked about, or Talcott Parsons said, and the instrumental value of education, which Jagdish Bhagwati said about getting a degree and getting a job. And then you have, in my research, for about 5,000 students we have studied, there are four kinds of students in your classroom. The one is called the life skill seeker, which is high on intrinsic value, low on instrumental. A job seeker, which is going to be slightly higher on intrinsic value, but more, of course, on loading on the instrumental value. There are also degree seekers, and there are some segment of the students who don't know why they're there in the higher education. They have been pushed by maybe peer pressure, or their parents have said that no, nothing to do, so join higher education. So this kind of scenario we have in front of us. So there are four different kinds. Now, if you use one single pedagogy to deal with all this and make these four kind of students learn, you will fail to engage them. And there should not be any surprise if you do something interesting in the college and not many students are participating because they are not seeing the value in it. So here is a model of education. Where are the students? Where are the teachers? The class is empty. So they have all gone to the market. They have all gone to the field, and they are studying. So are we taking our student to the field? Are we taking students? Are giving the opportunity enough to see things in the marketplace or in the society or in historical moment and things like monument and things like that, and learn from seeing. There is another model where there is no teacher in the classroom, it's the bot which is teaching, and it's not very far away scenario that we are going to see the teacher-less class. So are we ready to accept this reality? The third one, I'm presenting is a model which was adopted in Delhi. It's called Khulja Sim project by the Department of Education. So what they did was that they put computer made a hole in the wall and put computer over there, and the slum around the slum area. And cameras were fixed just to see the movement of the students, how they do what they do with the computer. And after 3 months, they saw that there was no teacher, there was nothing. And slum children actually learn how to operate computer, and they become very good in operating computer. So this goes on to saying that, there are many other alternative ways of learning other than the teacher-led learning. So, are we going to assimilate those as a part of pedagogy where the students are made free to learn at their own pace and their own ways? And this is one of my favorite method of teaching. where teacher is not present in the classroom. Probably teacher is present at the backside of the class and he's sitting just watching, and one student is teaching the other student. So the peer learning. So peer learning among students. Are we promoting this culture? Are we allowing the students to become a teacher or take the responsibility of a teacher? Because if I look back my own life, I found that when I was a student, I was in need of a lot of money because I funded my own education. My parents were not in a position to fund my education, so I started earning money side by side, and then used to buy books and all. I realized quickly that when I started teaching, and for the earning purpose, of course, I become a better student. And then I really realized that if we can actually make our students or allow them to take the responsibility of a teacher and become a teacher, it is really going to help their learning. And on the other side, I saw that when I became a teacher, I realized that when I started acting as a student, learning more and more for myself, I became a better teacher. And therefore, are we exposing the teacher in a student? Are we exposing the student in a teacher? If that is possible, then we can achieve quite a lot. Professor Biggs talks about the constructive alignments of what you want to achieve in terms of learning outcome, assessment, and the pedagogy. So there has to be a complete synergy in the three. And in most of the colleges, this is terribly missing, sorry to say. And we do not understand the difference between grading and assessment, evaluation and assessment. What we do basically is to grade. And the grading is not learning. Grading is not going to promote learning. So there is a difference. You can see here on the one side, the assessment is to increase the quality. So you're actually nurturing the student and developing assessment in such a way that it becomes a learning tool. And the grading is just to evaluate. So you sit on the judgment and say, oh, you are A, you are B, you are C, and you fail and you pass. No, that is not going to help us. We need to actually go beyond that. The fourth one, which is most critical, is the leading by example, not just a transactional teacher. So, Professor Palmer, I'm quoting again, she talks about the courage to teach, the good teaching and the good teacher. And she said that, good teaching is not based on so much on the teacher's technique, but rather it comes from the identity and the integrity of the teacher. So who you are as a teacher makes a lot of difference in how you're going to teach in the classroom. So what are the practices that we can build and nurture to create a passionate culture? So culture of reading, which is very important, culture of writing, culture of debating, hobby clubs, affiliation group. Leading by example is very important. How about winter classes in the lush green ground? How about a student engaging class for the peers? How about sending students to select library reading centers in the town? Can our professor sit with the students over a cup of tea, coffee, drink and talk and listen? Can our professor teach one-on-one to the slow learners? Can student be seen as a mentor? It's very, very drastic and very it may look very, euphoric to talk about this, but a lot of research in HR has come down to the conclusion that the people in the age of 40s, they require a mentor in the age of 20s. So if you really can fix a mentor for yourself in the age of 20, that is, your student can become your mentor. And that's how the reverse mentoring is being talked about. So reverse mentoring for a teacher is very, very important, very critical for achieving great things. This is also based on the research through the students' eyes, insights into what is most important. So we asked this question to several students, what is most important for you? And they said that knowing that someone believes in them and their abilities is often the difference between students who just show up and the students who strive to learn and improve. And as a teacher, we'll be very happy if you get a student like this who asks questions in the classroom, who comes prepared in the classroom. But that's not happening in our setup. It's precisely because we don't believe in the ability of the students. We don't give them opportunity and a space to maneuver their learning. We are just going lecturing. That's not going to work. I'm so sorry to say that. And we need to teach students to be happy and mindful. We have actually designed a course on happiness and well-being, and this is the future. Every institution should have a course on happiness and well-being, and with certain practices to be understood by the participants, the happiness can be increased can be made to increase in the life. There are ways to do it. Providing time for a student to talk with each other is extremely important, and providing opportunities for all students to participate and shine is priceless. So Robin Ellis said that, making people, and I'm just putting students over here to just give it a context. making people better in your presence and making sure the work continues in your absence. That's what the objective of a good institution should be. Anita Roddick said, what I have learned is that people become motivated when you guide them to the source of their own power. We need to believe in the ability of our student, and we need to guide them to the source of their own power and not our power, right? So, they are not to be guided to your power. They have to be guided to their own power. So that's what, as a teacher, we should do. Gratitude is very important. As Bob Oliver said, that someone I loved once gave me a box full of darkness. It took me years to understand that this too was a gift. So profound, Oprah Winfrey said that, people want to be heard. That's very important. So how much hearing we do for our students. So I would like to stop my presentation over here. I'm done. If there are any questions, I can take it forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. It was very informative deliberation, and your presentation was focused on 3 P's, that is passion, purpose, and participation. And along with that, you have mentioned that happiness is one of the most important part of quality education. So I am seeing that there is a question in chat box. It's from Momina Jahan. She want to know that I have seen that at times there are teachers who work hard and remain burdened most of the times with one or other works, and there are teachers who do not have to work that much. At times you observe them not working ethically and still appreciated. In such situation, how to remain motivated and stay positive while working and giving out positive output? This is very, very good question, in fact.
I appreciate, Momina, and I share your, anguish. I share your grief. I share your views. Absolutely. I mean, it can be a question of many of us. Right?
It's a very relevant question.
Yeah. So I'll just give you an example. Probably this example can give you an answer. So I was lecturing to a group of young students in remote Bihar. Bihar is a slightly backward district in terms of education and other things. So I was actually lecturing to a very remote area, and I asked them, how many of you know computer? Not many of them raised their hands, and in fact they started talking about more problems, and I started listing them on the board. So got interested in knowing what kind of problem they face. So they gave me a long list of problems, including the roads are not good shape, the teachers are not coming to the teaching, electricity is not there, we don't have the classroom properly, a lot of things that. Then there was a hand that was raised right from the back of the crowd. Then I thought, he is also going to add one problem into the list. So I asked him, what is the problem that you want to add into the list? He said, no, I don't want to add any problem in the list. I just want to say that, I know computer. Now look and behold, the whole class is saying that, it's not possible to learn computer. And this guy is saying, oh, no, I know computer. So I asked him, how did you know computer? Can you share your views? He said, well, this is a slightly industrial area. So the electricity pattern, I have just studied the electricity pattern. It actually comes right in the middle of the night for the industrial supply. There is no domestic supply. So it goes in the morning at around 4 or 5. So I asked my father to give me a computer. I opened my computer in the night at 12 and I shut it down in the 4 in the morning, and I learned computer. So this guy is having a larger circle of influence. You read the 7 Habits of Great People, right? Stephen Covey. So he talks about that. So your circle of influence, and the others talked about the circle of concern. So the circle of concerns are very big for us all the time, including that the government is bad. So government is bad is something that is not in our control. It's a circle of concern. It's not a circle of influence for you. So the question is that, where are you focusing? Monima. Sorry if I mispronounced the name. Where are you focusing? Are you focusing on the circle of concern, or are you focusing on circle of influence? So in Bible it is said that somewhere it is written, God, please give me the strength to bear things which I cannot change, and give me the strength to change the things which I can. right? So as an individual, where should we focus? We should focus more on circle of concern. The others are not good, others are taking advantage, others are taking this, there he is doing bad, he is doing wrong. Where should we focus? Or should we focus on ourselves? Now, I'll tell you something very interesting. If I tell you my own story, I didn't have even 2 square meal properly when I was a student. I couldn't get that. I literally studied in lamppost. If I would have actually focused more on circle of concern, there was so much of concern, I would have actually burdened myself and killed myself over there.